We concluded last Sunday's discourse on the second chapter with studying the two important verses, 64 and 65. 64 says, Radadveka Viyuktaistu Vishayan Indiyeshwarana Atmavashya Vijayatma Prasadam Adhigacchati. We can live in this world, we can move freely among the sense objects, but we must have perfect self-discipline within. The senses must be under our control. Such a person will develop tremendous tranquility, prasada. And the next verse added, prasade sabudukkhana aniyasyopadayate prasannachetatohyasa buddhi sarvadhyastare. The person who has prasannata within, there will be no sorrow. Sarvadukkhana ani. The prasanna mind means no agitation of the mind can come from sorrows and other afflictions. And a person of such tranquil mind has a buddhi firmly established. Buddhi parivadishtare, steady. So that these two verses tell us that we can live in this world, walk in this world, move freely with people, but with a tremendous self-discipline. This is the teaching of the Gita. That's why we are allowed to work, allowed to get to the world. But we are not lost by doing so. We will not get consumed by the world. We remain the master. How to put this man who is a creature today to that state of being free? That is freedom. This is not freedom. A creature who can be attracted by anything and everything. So the word creature comes again and again, Jantu in Sanskrit, and don't be a creature in the supreme message of the Lord. Man alone can cease to be a creature. No animal can. So when you cease to be a creature, you become yourself. True realization of one's own self comes at that time. Nothing can shake you from here. So in several verses, it is stressed again and again. Why is it stressed that this sensory system must be disciplined by the mind? Mind is the master. Sensory system is the servant. This is needed. This is repeated again and again. Why? Because there is something above the sensory level, our own true nature. To get an awareness of that, you need this discipline. If I am a materialist, I believe only what I see with my five senses and nothing else. This teaching makes no meaning at all. If the senses alone are true, and the objects of the senses alone are true, then learn about them. Let the senses get what is called immersed in them. There is no harm. That is exhausting. Because people discover by investigation that this human being need not remain tied down to the sensory system like any animal. He can go beyond the sensory system. There is a profound truth waiting for him there. We use the word transcendental. It means above the sensory level. The profound truth is waiting for you there. Therefore, this discipline has a sensory level. That's what makes for yoga. That is yoga, this is yoga. Two wonderful words in Sanskrit. Sensory satisfaction is called bhoga. We all deal with bhoga. But don't continue at the bhoga level all the time. Rise to the yoga level. Sri Ramakrishna puts it like that. If from bhoga you don't rise to yoga, you are bound to get into yoga. All sorts of mental ailments, nervous ailments, and social tensions all are bound to come. So, march on. Don't stay put at the sensory level. The child lives entirely at the sensory level. But as it grows older, it can get intimations of something higher. Let me go towards that. That means a little discipline of the sensory system. Even to become a law-abiding citizen, you need a little control of the sensory system. Even to be a member of a healthy society, you need a little control of the sensory system. This is what is insisted upon by the Gita, not as an end in itself. In the very first sloka in this section, when Krishna started expounding the nature of Chitta-Prajna, he said, it is not that you drive away all sensory attractions, make the mind empty. That doesn't make a man Chitta-Prajna. Mind must also be yoked to the Atman that is within. Realize your own infinite nature beyond the sensory level. Then he is a Chitta-Prajna, he accepts that is negative, it is positive. A mere negative ascetic attitude is never very much respected or presented in account of literature. It must be something that gives you joy. If the sensory system gives you joy, what lies above the sensory system will give you a million times joy. That's the language used in the Upanishads. The happiness of a man who realizes the Atman is equal to the happiness of gods, Gandharvas, and the best of men and women. Because he has achieved something unique, his own infinite nature. What can be higher than that? And therefore, these two verses give us the freedom to live in this world, to work in this world. Gita stresses that point. This philosophy is for those who want to work in this world, to live there. But live there slowly as a master, not as a slave, not as a creature. That is a great teaching. This, if you don't do, there will be shipwreck. We will collapse as a human being. That is the theme of the next two verses that we study today. He said, Prasanna Chevaso Khyati Buddhi Bhagavad Pristhate. The next verse says, Nasti Buddhi Ayuktasya. That is verse 66. Nasti Buddhi Ayuktasya. Naja Ayuktasya Bhavana. Naja Bhavayava Shanti. Ashantasya Kutas Sukham. Step by step. What a profound depth psychology you get here. It's not some dogma of theory. You may just believe and go away. Not at all. Examine for yourself. Is it true? Study your own mind, your own reactions. So it says, Nasti Buddhi Ayuktasya. To the Ayukta, there is no Buddhi. That Buddhi by which we have to achieve a stable life and realize the truth hidden within ourselves, that Buddhi cannot come without this Yukti. Yukti here presents disciplining of the sensory level, what in Sanskrit we call Shama and Dhamma. Control the mind, control the senses. These two things are necessary, as I said, even to become a Buddhist. What to speak of becoming a yogi? Therefore, Nasti Buddhi Ayuktasya. To the ayogi, there is no Buddhi. That means Buddhi yoked to the Atman. Buddhi that can get oscillations of the Atman into itself. That Buddhi cannot come without this prior self-discipline at this sensory level. That is the first statement. Nasti Buddhi Ayuktasya. Naja Ayuktasya Bhavana. Without this sensory discipline, no meditation also is possible. Bhavana is the word for meditation. It also means spiritual imagination. Imagination which is able to catch the radiations from the spiritual dimension of the human personality. That's a wonderful quality, the nature of imagination. Here it means that type of meditation by which we are able to stabilize our system and get a glimpse of something beyond the sensory level. So, nasti buddhi ayuktasya, nacha ayuktasya bhavana, nacha abhavayata shanti. Without that meditative mind, there can be no shanti, no kind of peace of mind, ever is possible. A little meditative mind. Today we deal with tension, stress in our daily life, in holiday industrial civilization. This is a common thing. Stress, stress, stress. Tension, tension, tension. And everybody is eager to get rid of this tension. Because with that stress and tension, you don't enjoy life. You don't enjoy work at all. You are a mere creature of the environment in which you are working. Therefore, that meditative state, where you are perfectly at peace with yourself, that state cannot come without this kind of disciplining of the sensory energy system below. And lastly, ashantasya kutas sukham. What a beautiful expression. Without that shanti, where is happiness? Mind is constantly disturbed condition, and where is happiness? Happiness is a wonderful state. You are serene, you are calm, you are fulfilled, then only happiness comes. So one by one he is studying, nasti buddhi ayuktasya, nacha ayuktasya bhavana, nacha abhaveta shanti, ashantasya kutas sukham. Without shanti of the mind, where is happiness? Man constantly full of tension within. Where is happiness for him? Not at all. Therefore, if happiness is the objective, you have to handle this mind. To handle the mind, you have to handle the sensory system which are below the mind. Then a physical system comes in. A beautiful disposition comes in a human being. Everything is peace within, peace without. That is the thing. Man like Bertie Russell, in his book on the kingdom of happiness, or how to become happy, in that last chapter, you become happy when you have three integrations achieved in this life. First, integration between you and society. Second, integration with the nature outside. Third, integration within your own mind. If these threefold integrations are achieved, man is certainly happy. That's way of being really happy. In that way, he has also stressed the need for training up his mind to become calm and steady, to be able to say, I am happy. Ashantasya kutas sukham. If I am full of peacelessness and tension, without that integration, how can I be peaceful? And without that peace, how can I be happy? The next sloka, 67, is very important. It must be connected with verse 64. 64 told you can freely move in this world of sense objects. Freely, provided atmavashye, videyatma, perfectly self-restrained, with tremendous discipline within, then you can freely move. He has said, if you don't have that quality, then you start moving about here, something great will happen to you, a tragedy will happen to you. That is the theme of the verse 67, the tragedy of human life. We can study all various tragedies in literature, from the Greek tragedies to our own Mahabharata, to our same Mahabharata, it's full of tragedy. Beginning to end, you will find tragedy here. So also, in Shakespeare, plenty of tragedies are there. We see everyday tragedy around us. Now, this tragedy is put into a one verse here. Why this tragedy takes place? Something is wrong with man. Some discipline is lacking within himself or herself. So 67 puts it in a beautiful language. Indriyanam Vicharatam Yam Namo Anudikiyate Tadasya Harati Prajnam Vayam Mahavadvambhasi. There is the sense organs are being carried away by the sense objects. He has not the power to stop itself. It is just carried away by the sensory objects. And the mind also follows in the wake of the sensory system towards the sensory objects. Indriyanam Vicharatam Yam Mano Anudikiyate. Mind follows meekly. You hukum. Whatever you senses say, I also follow you. That kind of thing. When the mind does like that, then what happens to man? Tadasya Harati Prajnam. That way of doing destroys whatever little wisdom you have in your life. Tadasya Harati Prajnam. The mind's prajnam or wisdom, discrimination is completely shattered thereby. And what is the example? Vayu Nama Iva Ambhasi. A boat, a ship is going in the Atlantic. A serious storm came. The boat was tossed about here and there. Its rudder was broken and it sank. That is human life. That should not be. That is tragedy. All types of tragedy have this common characteristic. When you lose control, you are overwhelmed by forces around you. Then the ship caught in the gale, rudder broken, and it sinks up automatically. So, Indriyanam Vicharatam, you want to go and work in the world of sensory objects, no harm, he said in verse 64. Now he says, if you don't do it like this, without that discipline and control, you get into the world of sensory objects, then you will be like a ship caught in a gale, a storm, and then sinking and all people perishing there. That should not be. Don't enact a tragedy in your life. We always say, tragedy is beautiful when depicted on the stage. It is dangerous depicted in one's own life. What you see as tragedy must purge you of your evil so that you become free from tragic situations. They call it the cathartic theory of a tragedy. You see a tragedy, you develop a catharsis. Catharsis is a word for forgive. A mental forgetting you get by seeing a tragedy. Then you don't commit that tragedy again. If that forgetting has gone home, there is no trouble at all. But unfortunately, people see tragedy and reenact it in one's own life. That is a bigger tragedy. That tragedy should not be. In many of world's literature, this human tragedy which takes place everywhere, every day, has been depicted. And one author has depicted it very beautifully. That is the German dramatist and poet Goethe in his book The Faust. Faust is a character. In that book, chapter 14 also, there is a section called Faust Solidarity in the Woods. Sitting in the forest, he is speaking to himself in a calm, quiet way. What has happened to me? What has happened to me? He is thinking. There comes this famous passage. I have found our unfulfillment now. Thou gave us bliss, which takes us near and nearer to the gods, but gave us also the companion, the devil. He strikes me and makes me nothing. He lights a wildfire in my heart. See the language. He lights a wildfire in my heart, but desire in possession. Whenever you have this wildfire of desire in my heart, what happens to you? In desire, I stumble to possession, and in possession, languish from desire. That's what the tragedy of human life. heart is full of desire. Desire works out outwardly towards possession. And when you are in possession, you are again languishing with desire. So this kind of being caught up in two forces, you become a mere creature. Your whatever is broken, you completely get destroyed. As Gita puts it here, Gita puts it so nicely. In desire, we resort to possession. In possession, we languish from desire. This is the broken state of man, and in that condition stays first in that solid object. So this is to be avoided. That's why we search the guidance of a philosophy. So the philosophy helped me to not to get into this tragic situation. When I make my life successful and leading to fulfillment, then we turn to philosophies such as the Gita. Yes, it is possible. Medical effort is needed. You have to train your mind. You have to discipline your sensory energy system. And with this sensory energy system well disciplined, we can work and live in the world without any fear. If you have a set of good horses, good reins, and a good driver to control the horses, you can have a fine ride. But if the driver is a drunkard, and the reins are weak and not tough, and the horses are very powerful, they will run and run, you become helpless victim in that carriage. You will suffer what we call shipwreck in that kind of journey. So this is what Gita wants to avoid in the lives of people. How to make them free, how to make them men and women in the true sense of the term. Manush, Ramakrishna said, Manush is the word for Manushya, for man in Sanskrit and Bengali Hindi. So who is a Manush? Manush, whose life is in the mind, not at the lower level. The real strength is in the mind itself. Manush is Manush, he said. So this is our great challenge before us. How to stabilize this life? How to make it successful? Making some money doesn't make all success in life. Many other weaknesses may come, defeats may come. The totality of life must prove to be the success. That needs philosophy. And philosophy doesn't mean speculative philosophy, mere logic, not at all. Living philosophy, which you can check up, verify, step by step. Am I becoming stronger? Am I becoming purer? Am I coming closer to the divine nature that is within me? This kind of checkup we can do and slowly develop that spiritual strength with which we can freely move here and there. That is the Gita teaching. The yoga of the Gita means that. As we said earlier, samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga is equanimity. Nothing can disturb the tranquility of the mind which has been established in the Atma. Similarly, yoga karma supaushana. Yoga is dexterity or efficiency in action. You strengthen the world around you by your work, improve the economics and politics and society of humanity. Nothing can disturb the tranquility of the mind which has been established in the Atma. Similarly, yoga karma supaushana. Yoga is dexterity or efficiency in action. You strengthen the world around you by your work, improve the economics and politics and society around you. And along with it, you also grow spiritually, realize your own spiritual nature. These two pari passu going together. What is called yoga, according to the definition we studied some Sundays earlier. So here are these verses where we make a success of life. Atmavashya Vidheya Atma, Atmavasha. It is in my hand. That horse who is taking me to that destination, he is in my control. Horse is not free. The fences should not be free. I am to control the horses. Atmavashya Vidheya Atma, highly disciplined person. He attains real tranquility. He said, in 64. The opposite, 67. You completely get destroyed. These two pictures we must keep before ourselves. Do I want my life to be destroyed? Do I want to suffer shipwreck in life? Or I want to fight this life with joy and tranquility, etc. That is my question to myself. I must find the answer. This is how Gita initiates such struggle for the higher life in every individual, giving himself suggestions how he can be successful, but asking the person to do it himself. Nobody else can do it for you. There is no proxy that can do it for you. In the Vivek Purani, Shankara particularly mentions it. He says there, Rinamodana Kartara, Pitusante Sudadayana, Bandhamodana Kartadu, Swasmad Anyo Natashana. If the father has debts, the son can bear the debts on behalf of the father. But if the father is in bondage, son cannot remove that bondage, father must remove it himself. Herself. There is no other way. Similarly, if there is a heavy load on my head, Mastakam Yastak, Father, heavy load on my head, somebody can come and remove it from my head and release me. But I am hungry. Somebody says, I shall eat for you. How can it be? I must eat for myself. Similarly, Vastu Swarupam, Putabodha Chaktusha, Svenaiva Vaidyam, Napapanditaya, Chandraswarupam, Nijachakshushaiva Jnavavyam, Anyai Ragavamyate Kim. What a wonderful verse it is. The nature of truth, Vastu Swarupam. Vastu is a very rich technical word in Sanskrit. Existing thing is called Vastu. About that table is a Vastu. Similarly, the Atman is Vastu. Brahman is Vastu. They are all existing reality. This is sensory, that is supersensory. So, Vastu Swarupa. What is the nature of the Vastu? How do you know it? Pura Bhota Chaktusha Svenaiva Vaidyam. You must realize it for yourself. How? By developing the clear eye of reason. The eye of reason must be clear. Just like if my eyes are dirty, I cannot see anything. I must clean the eye. Then I see what is true about that thing. Here the eye is eye of reason. Bodha Chakshu, the eye of understanding, eye of reason. Spura means clear, pure. Pura Bodha Chakshusha. Svenaiva Vaidyam. You must see for yourself what is the nature of that thing. Madhupanditena, not a scholar on your behalf trying to know it for you. That is no fun at all. Then the example comes. Chandraswarupam, Nijachakshushaiva Jnavavyam, Anyai Ragavamyate Kim. The beautiful full moon rising on the eastern sky. You must see it for yourself and enjoy the beauty of that full moon. How can somebody describe it for you and be satisfied with it? You see it for yourself. This is the stress in Vedanta. Developing awareness in ourselves. Higher, higher, higher. That is spiritual development and fulfillment. The Gita is the science and technique of that growth of man from creatureliness to freedom, from creatureliness to blessedness. Step by step, it will take us to that high level. There we are ourselves in the true sense of the term. And then, therefore, the next sloka says, 68. Tasmat yasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashaha indriyani indriyartebhyah tasya prajna pratisthita tasmat. Whenever you say certain things, then finally tasmat, therefore, if this is true, what follows? That's the word tasmat in Sanskrit. Tasmat yasya mahabaho, whose knowledge is steady. How does he become steady? Because he has completely disciplined the sensory energy system below the buddhi. That he has done. Yasya Mahabaho, Nigrihitayam Sarvasha. From all sides, the sense organs are perfectly under control. Not one is left to be free and wandering here and there. Not at all. In fact, like Manu will say, Out of the five sense organs, you have disciplined four. One left undisciplined. Then you have lost all the five. That's the nature of the sense organ. So, we must deal with all the sensory energies within ourselves. We shall use them as we want them. Not they will do it and we are merely a victim. As a horse goes wherever it likes, the rider becomes the victim. That should not be. Tasmāt yasya mahābāho nigrihītāni sarvasha. On all sides, all the five senses are under definite control. We may not have it at the beginning in full measure, but we start with a little measure. As I told you, to be a citizen of a free country, you need a measure of self-discipline. Without that, it's not a citizenship at all. And ethical values, moral values, they come from this discipline of the sensory energy system. So here he says, when you proceed further in your spiritual development, tasmāt yasya mahābāho nigrihītāni sarvasha indriyāni indriyāpekṣya. Indriyas are controlled and disciplined by indriyārtha, sense objects. Senses, sense objects. They have an affinity. They constantly go with each other. But I am here to see that they don't do what they want to do. I want them to do what I want them to do. That is spoken of in the third chapter. Motiche, Indriya Indriya Tasya Pratnya Pratisthita. That person's Pratnya, wisdom, is steady. Our wisdom is unsteady. Sometimes everything is fine, sometimes the mind has gone down here and there. That steady wisdom has to come by constant practice and handling of life in a conscious, deliberate way, intelligent, rational way. Having said this, the Gita gives you a remarkable idea, which you find in many of these Taoist teachings in China. It says, 69, Yānisha sarvabhūtānaṁ tasyāṁ jāgrati samyami yasyāṁ jāgrati bhūtāni sā nisha paśyato ne. The word nisha means Sanskrit sleep, night. Nisha means night, dark night. It's called nisha. Then jāgrati means awake. Jāgarana is awake. So, this yoga puts a very interesting paradox. Yānisha sarvabhūtānaṁ. That aspect of reality which is treated as darkness by all beings, the yogi perceives intense light there. And that aspect of reality where ordinary people see plenty of light, the yogi sees only darkness there. This is the comparison between the two. What is nisha to one is not nisha to the other. It is jagrata to the other. It is the reverse also. Yānisha sarvabhūtānaṁ. Atman, my divine nature, ready to stay here and see. I don't know anything about it. Absolutely ignorant about it. I don't find any interest also in it. That's called nisha. For a yogi, it is always full of light, this subject. But the worldly man, there is no interest at all. It's all darkness to him. I have no meaning in that particular proposition. Yānisha sarvabhūtānaṁ tasyāṁ jāgrati samyami. Then, when you go and say, I will come after money, greed, and even cheating people, violence, I shall do all this. Yogi sees nothing there, it's all darkness. Absolutely no light there at all. So you can see these two opposite sides. Extremely worldly minded, where only what I see and touch is real, nothing else is real. The other man says, in infinite Atman, my real nature, and your own real nature, I see that. These are all of no meaning to me. They are very ordinary. These are the two types of minds in the world. It is put in a very, what we call, language of contradiction. Yānisha sarvabhūtānaṁ. That which is night to all beings, that which is darkness to all beings, Tasyam Jagata Samyami. The self-controlled man is fully awake in that particular dimension. Yasyam Jagata Bhutani. That dimension of reality in which ordinary beings who are fully awake, what does the yogi see there? Nothing but darkness, nothing but meaninglessness is found there. So this relativity is there. A child plays with toys. It is its intense pleasure. But the parents are not interested in that toy, not at all. They have got other toys to play with. This toy is not for parents there. They see child's work. That is the grown-up man's work. Even in this particular field you find these differences. Let them do. I am not concerned with it. We have got serious things to do with it. Things like that. When we play as children, we are so absorbed in the play. That is our ability. I remember as a boy, when we played football and all that, even night has fallen, you cannot see the ball, still you won't stop playing. So much interested in it. The most important thing for our life. But somebody else will say this was childish, so useless. It will say that in worldly life it is the same. Worldly activity, worldly pleasure, worldly success, we are running after it, 1, 2, 3 going on. Whereas the yogi will say, I don't find any meaning in all this. The same man will say, there is no meaning in it. When he outgrows that particular dimension. This is the nature of human life. We go from one pressure to another pressure to higher pressure. There is something higher and higher and higher. The playing toys is very great joy. Reading books and studying great thoughts is also a tremendous joy compared to this. Then realize your own divine nature is supreme joy. Nothing can compare with that. So Vedanta says there are various dimensions of joy. We have to seek them one after the other. Don't get stuck up at any particular level. No level is condemned. Every level has its own value. But march on, march on, march. That is the supreme word of Vedanta. Charai Vedi, the Vijayabhadra said, march on, march on, march on. Don't stop there at one particular level. Whenever civilizations stagnate at the sensate level, they die away. And many critics of civilization today, like the Harvard University professors and others, McDougall, all of them, this is a sensate civilization. We shall get stuck up there. There will be no salvation from this kind of getting stuck up. Creativity will die away. That's a language that we are using today. And so, Vedanta said, march on, march on. Ramakrishna said in a beautiful parable, Egi a job, Egi a job. In the glory, Egi a job means Aage baro, march onward. That's the meaning. So he said in the story, a woodcutter used to cut wood during the forest, small quantities, get a bundle, come and sell it in the market and make his living. He went on for a long time like that. One day a holy man passed that way. He saw this woodcutter doing this. He simply told the woodcutter, march on, march on, march on. Aage baro. That's all the message he gave. He didn't take it seriously. Continued the same way. But one day the thought came, I am just cutting wood here. That very man told me to go deeper, go onward. Why not I try to go onward? He went a little deeper in the forest. He got more, what you call, high quality wood there. He got more money. Then he said, why should I stop here? Why not go still more? Then he came across a copper mine. He became very rich. Then a gold mine. Then a diamond mine. He became immensely rich. That was a story he tells. So spiritual life is like this. Egi a job. Aage baro. Big things are waiting for you. Don't think this is efficient. Just like you tell your children. By the time they are 4 and 5, enough of this toys. There are better things for you. There are books. Read. Word of mouth is for you. That's how child gives up its childishness and grows into maturity. Similarly, there is a spiritual maturity in people. playing with little toys of name and fame and pleasure and cheating of other people, that is a fear of joy we throw away. The time comes, all this will have to go. Something high will come to you. That's why this Veda has that covenant. Yam Shamas Sarvabhutanam Tasyam Yadavati Samyami Yasyam Yadavati Bhutani Sa Nisha Pashyata Muni. The Muni sees only Nisha, darkness there. What I see as light, he sees as darkness. There is no meaning in that. I pass through all this and in search of something better, something higher. Exactly. That is very important showed up in this chapter, verse 69. Then comes a tremendous statement. What is the nature of that mind that is undisturbed, that cannot be shaken by all these various pressures going on around? What is that nature of that mind? The only way it either would express it or through an example, illustration. That's the meaning of this verse 17. Apuryaman acharat pratishtham samudhyamana pravishanti advat tadvat kama yam pravishanti sarve sashanti mahatmanena kamakamani. Who runs after various desires, sensory cravings, etc., etc. That is one type. Another person, so many cravings are going into him, doesn't make any disturbance inside. Absolutely calm and steady. One's desires, others' desires, all enter into him. No disturbance at all. Absolutely steady. What the nature of that mind? It is like a big lake. Apuryamanam acharat pratishtham samudram. Samudra, the ocean, hold to the brim. In that samudra, so many rivers carry heavy loads of water, just like in the rains this time, Brahmaputra, Ganga, how much water went into the ocean. The ocean never found any difficulty at all. Can absorb all these things. An ocean-like strength and steadiness, that infinite dimension, where these desires enter without creating a ripple in the mind of man. That man attains peace, not the one who is distracted by wrong and slight little desire. He is upset, he is distracted. Nakamakami. The one who runs after kama, sensory desire, all the time, that can never be, that man can never be peaceful. But Apuryamanam, acharat pratishtham, samudram. That samudram which is acharat pratishtham, well established and immovable, into which samudra, so many rivers flow without making any disturbance in the ocean itself. Such a motion like mind, when we develop in Buddhistic language, we say bodhi chittam. The chittam of the mind is a buddha, bodhi chittam, the wonderful chittam. Everything can enter there without disturbing the peace of that mind. That is possible. Everybody can try, even little achievement possible. So this is what I refers to. That man who has established tremendous strength and stability within oneself, and all these various attractions around him do not make any difference to him. He is absolutely calm and steady. So, Mahapradavat Akshokshimana, in the Upanishad commentary, Shankara says about Nachiketa, that young boy, he was told by Yama, I shall give you plenty of eatables, plenty of pleasures, comfort, land, food, plenty of women, everything I shall give you. Don't ask me any question about the higher philosophy or the nature of life, the nature of the Atman, and all that. Don't ask me those questions. And the boy said, you take it yourself. You say to love that. I don't want it. I want only the truth. Nothing else I want. There Shankara says, Mahabhudavat Akshotrimana. And Chikitadas, like a mighty lake, which cannot be shaken by the amount of flood water getting into it. That is the mind of Nachiketa. The very picture of such a mind is beautiful. It is meant for meditation. It is Buddhistic meditation. Bodhichitta is a subject of meditation. What is that mind of Buddha? It is full to the brim. Nothing can ever shake it. What is the nature of that mind? So Bodhicitta is a great subject of meditation. Jnani is mind. What is the nature of that mind? Let us think about it. Let us go towards it in that way. So, this particular sloka refers to that fullness that we have achieved. Nothing more in these days. Never full. That's the nature of that human mind. Apuryamanam, Achalat Pradishtham, Samudram, Apa Pradashanti Yadva. Apa is water. Water is constantly entering into that ocean. But nothing happens. Absolutely steady. Tadvat, similarly, Kama Yantravishanti Sadhe, whose minds are entered into by all sorts of desires without making a ripple in that mind. That mind alone attains peace and not the one that is disturbed by every passing fancy of the human mind. Every fanciful desire disturbs the mind. That mind is very flimsy. This mind is the highest development that can take place to any human being. So Shanti Mahatma he attains real peace. Not Kamakami is the language used. Man of desire, having other desires. And the result is, as our Gita has said in the past, while from desire has come into possession. In possession, language from desire. I want more, I want more, I want more. That kind of attitude. We have studied that in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other books. Story of Yayati, that emperor. I think it will come in the Mahabharata TV also. A man who had enjoyed life, an emperor, and in old age case, he found body as old, mind is still young, full of desire, full of craving. So he wanted his sons, one by one, to give him youth. You take my old age, give me your youth. All the boys said, no, I want our youth for ourselves. One son said, Father, I love you, take my youth, give me your old age. So the father becomes young once again. And again he comes down the pleasure, enjoying nicely. Again one day he found himself old. Over here is getting grey and the skin is getting wrinkled. In the mirror he found this. Then he began to think a little. What has happened? Mind is still young. Body is old. Why did this happen? What is this? Then he came to this wise conclusion. That is given in the famous books. Majāta Kāma Kāmānām Upabhogena Kāyati Avishā Vishnavatmeva Bhuyeva Vivabhate. Desires are not quenched by satisfying them. See that? Just like water, you pour in the fire to put out the fire. Only the fire flames for still more. Similarly, by enjoying sensory objects, you are not going to destroy sensory craving. They only crave more. One time you will be able to say, enough. That language, there is something higher that cannot be at this level only. That's the famous utterance of reality, and something of that wisdom is coming to modern Western civilization. Their thinkers are saying the same thing. This kind of consumerism is destroying our world today. We must put a check to all this. This is a big fight coming out of the path of modern Western civilization. So these experiences India has passed through 5,000 years, seen prosperity, adversity, out of all this they have squeezed, and lots of wisdom. That wisdom is for all humanity. Part of it you will find in the Gita, Upanishads, Bhagavata and other Puranas. So, Shanti Mahatma Akamakami. And so finally, Vihaya Kamani Yasvarvan Guman Charati Nispraha Nirmana Nirahankara Sashanti Adhigashpati says that man who lives devoid of craving, longing, abandoning all desires, without a sense of I and mine. The I and mine makes for craving. If I am feeling my oneness with you, my craving to that extent becomes less. I want to satisfy your craving. That's how, in a society, a healthy society, we will have a disciplined type of mind. I don't want to get everything at the cost of others. I will work for others also. There, morality becomes ethics comes. In the other case, absolute greed, nothing but greed, craving and greed, nothing else. So he says here, that man who lives devoid of longing, abandoning all desires, without a sense of I and mine, he attains to peace. Sashanti Mahatmati, Sashanti Adhigachati, he attains peace. In the Bhagavatam, 11th book, there is a wonderful story of a Avadhuta, a wandering ascetic, who is seen by that Yadu, the famous king in our Puranas. Yadu was walking on the road and found that young man, 16 to 18 years old, healthy, strong, but absolutely calm, like a lake which is full to the brim. That description you find with his body, about his body. So, they will look at him, and he was so deeply impressed, and he went towards him, and put him a question. And the question is very interesting. He says there, Yaneshu, Dasyamaneshu, Shamadhoga, Nivadina, Madatyase, Agnina, Mukta, Ganga, Anvaspat, Vikat, Vipat. People in this society are always burned by some desire or the other. Dasyamaneshu, burned by various cravings and desires, etc. Kama, Yoga, Nivadina. There is Kama, Yoga, what you call greed, and everything. They are all burned. But Nadatyase, Agnya, Mukta. You are not burned by any one of these fires. You are eaten by fire at all, completely. Agnya, Mukta. Just like an elephant is in the heart of the Ganges, in the Robert, he is not afraid of any fire around him. He is absolutely protected by this. Ganga, Anvaspat, Vikat, Vipat. Vipat is the word for elephant. He is in the heart of the Ganga. He has no fear. Or for anywhere it may happen, I have no fear. You are like that. He is studying. How does it come to you? How this wisdom comes to you when you are so young? People run after all sorts of things in your age. You don't run after anything. And yet you are full, ever joyous. What is the nature of that achievement that you have? Please tell me, who is your Guru and what did he teach you? Out of that comes beautiful story. The boy telling, not one Guru, I have 64 Gurus. They didn't teach me. I learned lessons by observing them, but by my intelligence. That's the story you get in the 11th book of Srimad Bhagavatam, the story of Avadhuta. Ramakrishna loved that story, and here the description of that youth is beautiful, absolutely calm and steady, never disturbed by things that disturb you and me. Some achievement is there within you. It's not a theory, it's an actual achievement. Anybody can have it. That's the language used with those few verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th book and chapter 7 and verse 29. These two verses here. Now, the last sloka in this book 72, and the last sloka of this Bhagavad Gita, second chapter. That sloka says, after completing all this exposition of Asthita Prajna, the nature of yoga, etc., Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapti Mukyati Kitvasyam Sundakari Brahma Gandhana Vricchati. Esha, this, showing with the hand, just like Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. It is called Brahmi Sthiti. Sthiti established in Brahman, that is reality. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. Once you achieve this, never again can delusion overpower you. You will be ever free from any delusion. Sthitvasyam Antakarayeti Brahma Uchati. If you achieve it only even towards the end of your life, even then you achieve Nirvana in Brahman, in one with Brahman. This is the language of the Gita verse. They could do it when they were young. They were slowly building up. But when they became old, they developed their spiritual strength to be established in Brahman. Desha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. Menam Swapya Vimushyati. Sthitvasyam Antakaleti. Antakala means just before death. Just before death, you achieve this wonderful illumination. Doesn't matter. You will achieve Brahman. Brahma Pritchati. It is the Shankara. If you achieve it just before death, it is wonderful. But how much more wonderful if you got it much earlier? The whole life, when you are young, vigorous, we are established in a tremendous state of mind, how joyous life will be. He is adding the commentary to this particular statement of the Gita. And so, this last verse also, the teaching of the chapter, particularly the last 19 and 20 verses dealing with Siddhat Pratna, Brahmi Siddhi, and which can be attained here and now, not in a heaven. Desha Brahmi Siddhi Partha, Ainam Swapya Vibhushyati. All these delusions will not come thereafter. Sthitvasyam Antakaleti. Antakala means the last moments of one's life, just before death. Brahma Pritchati. We achieve Brahma Nirvana. That is the message the second chapter gives to every one of us. It is a rational message, practical message, universal message. We can have all of us this attitude developed within ourselves, and this achievement we can have in this very life. That is the teaching of the Gita. From 5th June also, we started studying the Gita. With the first 6 lectures dealing with introduction. The Shankara wrote the Gita commentary, preceded by the Gita Dhyana Shlokas. Those were 6 lectures. Then came, from July end onwards, the first chapter. Then we have the second chapter. We have completed second chapter today. We shall have the third chapter next Sunday when we meet here. Some of the statements of this chapter will give rise to doubts in Arjuna's mind. And the third chapter begins with such doubts. And such doubts are as much Arjuna's as yours and mine. We all have such doubts. They are taken up and cleared in the third chapter, known as Karma Yoga chapter. So this is how this wonderful Gita has been introduced in the second chapter, the profound philosophy of practical spirituality. The whole of life becomes spiritual. Not that it is going to become some mystical experiences here and there. No such thing. You are spiritual means you are aware of your spiritual nature in the context of your work. So it is not necessary to have any kind of some mystic experience, unconscious state, this and that. No such thing. You are a householder. You have got children to look after. You have got responsibilities in life. You can't be lying unconscious somewhere in some mystical experience. But you will be spiritual. Spiritual awareness will be this. What will go on side by side. When there is work, you need attention to work. Your attention cannot be in the transcendental realm at that time. This is how Gita put the Gita idea of yoga before us to make our working life deeply spiritual. Working life is needed. We can't do without it. Next chapter will stress this point again and again. But in the working life, can I become spiritual? Krishna answered, yes you can. Because it is your birthright. the infinite art and equal to natures. Therefore, you have in the second chapter the broad elements of this great philosophy. It's complex. It will be strengthened and nourished further by other ideas coming in other chapters hereafter. We shall enter the third chapter next Sunday. Before I close, I announced earlier about the complete works of Vivekananda, 8 volumes, highly subsidized edition, available for sale for nearly only 90 rupees. And the books will be in your hands on January 12th, on his birthday. A special concession during this 125th birthday year of Vivekananda. Since I announced it some months, 2-3 months ago, already 1,600 people have taken the order. And they have got only a few days more before the order closes. So you just only remind those who want, it is time to go and register and have a volume for yourself. A wonderful addition to your library, reading philosophy, strengthening philosophy, to get out of that literature. So this is the announcement regarding the new edition of Complete Works of Swami Vivekananda, 8 volumes. We will spend a minute in silence and meditation, and then there will be adequate attention as usual, and you are all welcome. We salute Krishna, the peace of the world, who is the blessing and love of Devaki, son of Vasudeva, destroyer of evil forces. To that Krishna be our dedication.